海賊の世界はこれからどうなる？
質問を返すようだが、今の海に頂点と呼べる奴はいるか？
The last few chapters of One Piece and what VegaPunk is delivering or articulating in his broadcast to the world has really got me thinking about the speech that Doflamingo gave at Marineford, as well as in his conversation to Vice Admiral Suru. There's a lot of parallels, specifically in the communication of how history is written.
海賊が悪、海軍が正義、そんなものはいくらでも塗り替えられてきた。正義は勝つって、そりゃそうだろう。勝者だけが正義だ。
As well as the various allusions or alluding to call to actions. And what I mean by that is when we remove all the lore that VegaPunk gave us regarding the Ancient Kingdom and the Deep family, essentially what he is sharing with the world is that history is written by the winners. He's kind of conveying that what you understand now is most likely not the truth, and he goes into a lot of different reasons on why he was exploring the poneglyphs and such, but that's very similar to what Doflamingo had shared in his speech when at Marineford, when he talks about justice. He says justice will win. Of course justice will win. It's the winners that decide what justice is. And I think a lot of that is kind of embodied in the scenario that's going on right now, particularly on Egghead, right? So even though it looks like the Straw Hats are going to escape, until the world government is completely defeated, they will be considered the winners. And when you think about it, Egghead, the narrative that's going to be spun to the world is that Luffy is the one that kidnapped and assassinated VegaPunk, right? And we've seen this happen a couple times with, most recently, the assassination of Cobra, and then as well as the incident at Ohara. All those narratives were spun to have the citizens of the world view the world government in a favorable light. And so that piece about history being written by the winner and justice being determined by the winner ties in perfectly with the next part of Doflamingo's speech, which is being broadcasted on a larger scale as a call to action by VegaPunk. And the part of that speech is specifically he asked, who's conquering the seas? When he asks who's conquering the seas to Vice Admiral Suru, he goes through all the various factions like the Shichibukai, the Yonko, someone from the worst generation, and then he declares, no, it's the world government. The world government has been conquering the seas. And it would make sense that their actions are to kind of weaken the pirate force, because the ideology of pirates, which is freedom, which is probably a cornerstone pillar of the ideology of the Ancient Kingdom, is directly against the ideology and the actions of the world government. And so when we think about the actions that the world government took to conquer the sea, they are slowly going after the Shichibukai. They have the Seraphim now, so they beefed that up. They have access to the technology needed to power an ancient weapon, most likely Uranus, by VegaPunk's invention, the Mother Flame. They are now going after VegaPunk, in a sense, to reduce the potential knowledge and innovation that he can create for the world. And so those actions altogether kind of depict how they're trying to conquer the sea. Now, you juxtapose that against what VegaPunk is sharing, and he is trying to kind of rally the opposite side. His call to action is really for all the pirates to go out and search for the One Piece in order to uncover the true truth written by history and provide justice to the world, because he says the fate of the world will be determined by who finds it. And so when we think about the call to action, it's the main players that we have to think about. So if you were a betting man, who would you have stocks in? Would you buy or sell the stocks? I'm going to go through the major stakeholders and tell you if I buy or sell their stock. Starting with the Buggy Pirates. I would buy their stock. Another part of Doflamingo's speech was who will team up with who and who will betray who. We've already seen some unlikely unions, right? So we have the VegaPunks, the Straw Hats, we have Cross Guild with Buggy the Clown, Crocodile, and Mihawk. And I wouldn't be surprised if Boa Hancock eventually joins Cross Guild, because she needs an avenue to go to, so why not go to a group of kind of allied pirates. So I would definitely buy their stock. Then we have the Red Hair Pirates. I would actually sell the Red Hair Pirate stocks. Although Shanks' feat over Kid is definitely something not to gloss over, I just think the way that they're positioned, they're not positioned to be a final antagonist. They're positioned more to be a final caliber setting tier for the Blackbeard Pirates, is what I think. And so I wouldn't buy their stocks. Then we have the Revolutionary Army. I think I would buy the Revolutionary Army stocks. The reason I would buy the Revolutionary Army stocks is just because the call to action that VegaPunk is giving right now is definitely going to boost allies of the Revolutionary Army. We've already seen the flames of rebellion starting to stir, and I just think that the information shared is going to do enough for various countries to want to join them. So that'll bolster their fleet. It won't bolster them top heavy, however, I do think they are poised for conflict against the Holy Knights, which is most likely who that silhouetted character is, holding a sword that looks very similar to Griffin, potentially Shanks' brother, but I'll let everyone else theorize on that. However, I think we've gotten less of Dragon than we have of Shanks, and so I think that their conflict against the Holy Knights, they'll probably come out the victors and then continue to kind of help the allied world grow. And then we have the Blackbeard Pirates. The Blackbeard Pirates, I would buy their... I think I would hold, right? So I think kind of their actions is a little bit easy to see or foresee coming. So they have access to Garp, right, as a bartering chip. I think the whole thing about Garp and the bartering chip for them to become a kingdom is really for them to get access to Mary Joie. And then once they get access to Mary Joie, we've seen Katarina Devon. She already has the capability to transform into Saturn now that she's touched them. And especially after this chapter, we should see what happens with the Grosse and when they come in contact with water. I'm under the impression that this might actually take Saturn out of the story, because in Egghead, we got enough backstory to understand his character. Most of us have come to detest him, which is what carried Egghead in the mid to later stages, right? His actions against Kuma and Bonnie and such. And then given the kind of ascent of Bonnie as a character and her abilities and kind of her character arc, it would just make sense if the Grosse took an L in terms of that kind of strength or force. You lose one Gorose, but you gain the Mother Flame, you gain access to York, and potentially you gain Vivi if Marcus Mars comes into contact and is able to retrieve her. I could see that happening, and then I think the reason I bring up Saturn is because if Saturn's out of the picture, I think that opens the door for the Blackbeard Pirates to utilize Katarina Devon's shape-shifting abilities into them. So yeah, that's how I would do it. I would buy the Buggy the Clown stocks, I would buy Revolutionary stocks, I would hold the Blackbeard Pirate stocks, I would probably sell the Shank stocks, the Red Hair Pirate stocks, and I would never even come into contact with the Marine stocks. So those are my thoughts on the major players. Outside of that, we have a couple chapters left in Egghead. Admittedly, Egghead has felt like continuous to be continued, but it is important for the characters or civilians of One Piece to hear VegaPunk's message, because that ultimately, again, is the call to action for the kind of final conflict to really come into head for all the characters outside of the Straw Hats. Looks like we'll be having 2 companions joining the crew with Lilith and Bonnie moving forward, and we're still waiting for MF's final move. Not sure what that'll be, but looking forward to it. Hopefully it's not just another large-scale kamikaze and it's something a little bit more interesting. But until then, Taicho out.